What's up, everybody? Once again, it is I, James, coming to you from the Nerdy Mewzings Podcast studio. I am super excited to be joined today by LA-based comic book writer, Mr. Ricardo Acevedo. Welcome to the stage, Mr. Ricardo.
Hey, James. Glad to be here. Really glad to be on this podcast. Super excited.
Glad to have you. And as we talked about before, you are the trial subject of the first test of the new studio, the virtual studio. Yeah. I am in the Nerdy Mewzings Podcast studio in real life, but we are on our virtual stage here testing out some new technology. Hopefully the tech gods are in our favor today.
Yeah. I'll send a little prayer. I'm the guinea pig, but I'm excited to, I'm going to run this wheel for as long as I can. So
awesome, man. So I specified the LA based part there, and I wanted to ask you right out the gate, did you go down to LA with aspirations of being a writer, or have you always been based out of LA? I know some people go and chase that dream. I actually have a very close friend that did that for many years. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your story and your connection with LA.
Funny enough, actually, I'm a native to LA. So I was born and raised in, Los Angeles, or in the Los Angeles County, actually from the San Fernando Valley, the SFV. So I've always been around here. I've always known, the traffic and how bad it can get. I've always been really used to having conventions and stuff being really close by, and I've been really lucky, to have that throughout my entire life. But I was born and raised here, and I have not left since.
That's awesome. So you didn't have to go far to pursue the writing dream.
Nope, it was right outside my door, on my front doorstep. So I was super lucky to just have a community right out the gate, with a lot of people. I know a lot of people, migrate to LA in order to sort of to follow their dreams and make them happen. I'm really lucky enough to just already be stationed here, from birth. So I think that definitely gives me a little bit of an advantage as far as like knowing the ins and outs of LA and like where.
Yeah, for some people that's pretty jarring. They go down there with that dream and really don't kind of realize how everything works, and it's the whole trial by fire thing, right?
Sink or swim. It's very it's even more expensive nowadays. It's astronomically expensive to move anywhere, let alone LA, which is like, the hub for every creative ever. I know there's other places like Houston or Dallas, I think, is like kind of popping off recently. Like it's becoming another kind of pillar of creativity. A lot of creatives are going there. And New York City has always been another place where, it's dreaming big. A lot of people end up going there, but LA, I'm very fortunate to have just been placed here,
Yeah, definitely. I think for Texas right now, it's Austin, like especially for the comedians and things. That's kind of where they're going and pursuing that. Like if you're in comedy, you're going down there, and kind of, Joe Rogan has kind of kicked that whole thing off with his comedy mothership and all of that. So it's interesting to see how these little meccas for different industries pop up over the years, isn't it?
It's super interesting. I know I was in Oregon. I was in Portland very recently.
Oh, okay.
They have a pretty big like indie comics kind of, alt comics scene.
They do.
So that was amazing to also experience, having finally been, the last time I went to Portland was when I was 15. Okay. So it was a big, I could actually explore and remember things and be conscious for like, everything that was happening.
And it's still weird. Say the slogan is "Keep Portland Weird." It's still weird,
and I love how weird it is.
Yeah, maybe even more so, especially if you hadn't been there since you were 15.
Oh yeah, like very much. But it's I think feels more like home to me, honestly, in that regard of like, I went to a Saturday night, like a Saturday market,
Oh
seeing,
yeah,
I always love going to the markets and
I
seeing
love
all
it.
the
Yeah.
creativity and the ingenuity on display, and how amazingly talented people are, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I went down there. Well, I go down there all the time to teach jujitsu seminars. I have a friend that has a school down there, and it's
Mm-hmm.
only about 2.5 hours from where I live. So it's a nice little day trip. And on
Mm-hmm.
my wife and I, on our way back, we stopped at one of those night markets, and it was so cool. Like
Mm-hmm.
just different like all different crafts and different creativity. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very vibrant place with creativity, I've found.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
Yeah. Now, as far as your own personal journey with writing, um, one, how did that, did you have any aspiration when it came to comics of being an artist or anything like that? Or has it always been writing for you?
It's writing has kind of always found its way back to me throughout my entire life. It kind of all really started when I was a kid, like maybe 4 or 5. I would play a lot of like traditional RPGs, role playing games, and I remember just falling in love with the characters and the writing and the way that it all sort of came together in the gaming experience. And so
Right.
I ended up writing a lot of short stories when I was a kid. I dabbled in poetry a bit. And then of course I kind of went through like the middle school, high school phase of like I'm kind of like I'm too cool for that, you know what I mean? And then and of course regretted it because, writing I found came to me very easily and like very naturally. And so I took notice of that and was like, okay, well, I like doing this. I feel like I'm like decent at it. And but I also do have aspirations of learning how to draw eventually. But
Nice.
for me right now, like, cartooning would be like a great avenue for me. I would love to explore that. But for now, I love just being a writer and focusing on learning how to write and also lettering a tiny bit, in Illustrator, like kind of learning at the moment. So it's
Oh,
super,
right.
super new. But for me right now, it's writing. Like I think it'll always be writing for me.
How are you finding your experience with Adobe Illustrator? Because
Super intimidating.
yeah, back when I was in college, I have a degree in what they call digital design. It's just an associate's degree, but they gave us, little tastes of different things. Here's web design, here's graphic design, here's how to use Photoshop, here's Illustrator. And I always remember the jump between Photoshop and Illustrator being so intimidating because
Yeah.
like the pen tool and all this different stuff that takes some skill to control. And
Yeah. Oh
yeah,
my gosh. And the points and like learning how like cut this on like certain axes and just learning how to
yeah,
like manipulate stuff in order to like make, especially when it comes to comics, like manipulate tails on the end of
yeah,
balloons to like look a certain way. And just I love how lettering is still more or less like handwork. It's a lot of people, it's not just kind of like preset balloons and stuff like that
yeah,
or caption boxes. It's really nice to know that there's still that art to it. There's still that skill cap to it.
yeah. No, it's definitely very skill based, and it makes a difference. I remember I did this for in February. My friend Thomas Patilli did this, like he called it the 28 panels challenge. So he gave you a prompt word for each day, and then you were supposed to draw a comic panel. And so basically, I took the words and used it to make a continuous story go over the 28 panels, right? But
Mm-hmm.
my friend Guy Dorian Sr., who's an awesome, like prolific artist, he's worked for Marvel and DC and everybody you can think of for the past 30 years. He gives me friendly critiques on things,
Mm-hmm.
and he was looking at those and he goes, "Get rid of that effing default font you're using. Go look at this letterer's work. You gotta up your game on this lettering, man. If you're gonna do it, do the lettering right too." So then I went and looked and found some fonts that were a little more up Guy's alley from what he
Yeah.
recommended. And then he's
Blambot
like,
and yeah.
yeah. And he's like, all right, that's better.
It makes
it,
a
it,
huge difference. Yeah.
it does, and it's important to have those people to point out things that we're maybe not noticing, or me, I'm focused on the art. So I should have been thinking more about the lettering in the caption, the word balloons, all of that. That's a big part of the art too.
Yeah, and it's something that as a writer I try to be very conscious of when I'm approaching the script is just how much space am I asking of a certain panel from an artist?
Yeah.
Like if a really big moment is happening, that's going to be either the biggest panel on the page, or it's going to be like, it might just be the only panel on the page, depending on how big it is, and keeping that in mind and not trying to cram so many big things happening on one page. And of course, the artist has to, also leave room, like negative space for lettering, so that, there can be room for balloons, because of course the lettering takes up physical space on the page. So it's all a very like fine balance. But once you strike it and you have that rapport with your artist and you guys just understand each other on that level, it works out beautifully.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot about or maybe a underappreciated aspect of word balloons and captions too, is like people who are working with maybe more amateur artists who haven't been in the game for a while, and they don't know how to direct the eye through the page, the panel, the captions and the word balloons and all of that. They can be used to do that as well. So you can actually help the artist out if they weren't creating that flow of the eye as they had intended. It's this other aspect of it that I think is very underappreciated and goes unnoticed, but you got to know where to look, especially when you're looking at a comic book, right?
It's even more important because when you're reading a comic and you're engaging with this medium, any bit, and this goes probably for for any medium, but when something kind of seems off and you notice it, it takes you out. And in that moment, you as the creator, you've kind of lost that momentum that you were giving the reader. And which is, and I think, like you were saying, it has to work together. But when you notice and it's not working, it becomes like so conspicuous. And
it does.
It's a beautiful art form in itself. I love it.
Now, for you, when did writing for comics kind of become your pursuit and the thing? Like, at what point did you really start taking it seriously and going, okay, this is where I'm leaning towards as far as a profession?
I would say I started taking it seriously about maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago,
Okay.
like kind of outside of college. I was 26 when I graduated with my bachelor's degree in writing from my local university. And I knew I wanted to write, kind of like video games at the time, or some sort of medium that was different to, regular prose, poetry, drama, stuff like that. But I really didn't imagine that comics would be a viable option. I know I had always loved reading comics growing up, but it wasn't until, my teacher in college, in one of my undergrad classes, told me after I submitted a piece of paper or a work, she went, "Oh, like you're a very visual writer. She's like, I want you to actually take this, find an artist and get a storyboard made of it."
Oh,
And
that's cool.
so, and I'm so thankful for her for that, because I took it to my good buddy Chandler Masayer, who's a wonderful storyboard artist, and he made it come to life in a way that I had never even imagined or pictured before in my life. And seeing artwork and your characters moving and interacting with each other on the page in comics is such an incredible feeling. And every time I get like, I start a new story and I come back to it and I see new artwork from it, especially when it's the first piece of artwork, I'm always blown away by the way that the artist is able to interpret and bring that to life. But I'd say the real first time that I started taking comics seriously was about 3 years ago, when I realized that my story that I actually wrote for my undergrad, called Bird Turd, it initially started as a short story.
And
And it's a little ridiculous.
We're gonna talk more about this too.
About
There it
this
is.
bad boy. We're going to talk about it, but it is a ridiculous idea. But my teacher at the time said, "Hey, write whatever you guys want," and I said, "You know what? All right, I'm gonna do some crazy shit. I'm gonna go all the wall." And so that's what I came up with. But it was my buddy Chandler saying, "You should make a comic out of this." And it was from that point I started researching, Googling stuff. I literally Googled like, what does a comic strip look like, how to write, downloaded Scrivener, and from that point on, just started really doing a lot of DIY stuff, looking it up, and here I am now.
Dude, that's awesome. That's such a we'll get back to Bird Turd because that is that's such a unique title. I did want to ask you because we were connected by my buddy, and he's also a writer, a comic writer, Clayton Rosman. He spoke very highly of you. How did you become connected with Clayton?
Through Clayton, I became connected through, we were both, there's this competition, Negative Space Comics, run by Noel Ferrangina Jr. He's a phenomenal, amazing, he takes care of like the marketing and the campaigns at AWA Studios. And he hosts this competition every year, Negative Space Comics, for, you submit your scripts to it, and it's mainly meant for people who are like trying to break into comics or want to learn more about them. And so I got my first hand at the comics, my first taste of the comics world, entering Bird Turd into that. I ended up becoming a finalist for it in the 2023 competition. And through that, I became connected with Noel and Alex, who are two wonderful mentors of mine that I cherish very deeply. And it was through that process of kind of being guided by them and mentored is where I started meeting other finalists and other semifinalists and people who had competed in Negative Space Comics, and Clayton was one of them. And so through that, I've been able to find like a nice community of other comic creators, whether artists, writers, letters, strictly through like Negative Space Comics. So I'm eternally grateful for, Negative Space Comics and Noel giving me that sort of first bite of the comics world and guiding me along like a lighthouse. It's been very, very wonderful to go at that pace and be, kind of have my hand held throughout that entire beginning, because I was very nervous.
I bet. Yeah. It's a new territory for you, right?
Yeah, completely new territory. I was so out of my depth. I still feel like I'm out of my depth, but it's I mean, the one wonderful thing about the comics community is that everyone is so welcoming, and everyone is so immensely helpful and just kind. And there hasn't been a single time where I've gone to a con and gone up to a creator that I've been following for like a long time and been like, hey, like, can I talk to you about this? Considering they're not busy or anything.
Right.
And they'll love to listen to you. They'll love to help you out. They'll love to, hear you gush about, all these different stories and ideas.
Absolutely.
And I've just been so grateful for all the people that I've interacted with in the comics community.
Yeah, my wife and I go to a lot of cons, and we always just comment on just like, man, these are our people. Like even just standing in line, you'll spark up conversations with people and have great conversation. You have a ton of things in common already, and same thing like you were saying with the creators. I've been lucky. Like I haven't had any bad experiences. I've even had great experiences with the ones I've heard give bad experiences. So I guess I've been fairly lucky. Like there's certain artists and things that have reputations, and I've had nothing but great, experiences with them, great interactions. So I think for the most part, it's a very open, very receptive community. And gosh, just think about like the accessibility we have to the creators, not only at cons but online. Like the interactivity online is crazy. The community and the ability to connect with like the equivalent of a Michael Jordan or a LeBron James or something, and like they actually talk to you back. Sometimes they repost stuff. It's really unique. I think having that availability, that access to the ability to access like superstar talent like that and get their feedback and things is something truly special.
It's amazing like how tight knit and wonderful this community is. And like theoretically I could like DM Mark Waite, or like James Herron or like Scotty Young, and like they might not respond, but I mean like the fact that like you can tag and post people and mention like, hey, I've just started reading this, or I love this, and getting like your story reposted is like just getting noticed by those people is like the best feeling in the world, and being like, oh my gosh, like James. I recently read Ultra Mega, the first volume by James Herron.
So good.
Incredible.
Not only the writing, but the art is amazing as well.
I saw him and his work in Rumble, and I immediately fell in love with like literally that entire style. And it's probably my favorite first issue of all time, Ultra Mega 1.
Yeah.
But getting like when I posted like, oh my gosh, I was just gushing online like a fanboy, absolutely going wild because I loved it. I was going feral. I loved this comic so much. And he reposted my story, and I was just like, I did it. Like I made it. I'm at the comic.
I can retire. I'm just getting started, but I can retire already.
Yeah. The ripe age of 30, I'm just gonna call it quits. I'm good, you know.
That's amazing. As far as creators go, who are some writers that you really look up to and whose work you look to for that inspiration and guidance?
A lot of big inspirations for me have to be Joe Kelly. I really, really like Joe Kelly. He wrote I Kill Giants, which is easily my favorite comic of all time. Hit me in a way that no other comic has before. Daniel Warren Johnson is also phenomenal. Like he's just everything. He's the whole package. He's an insane
just like James
artist.
Herron, right? Yeah. Amazing artist, like, amazing writer.
They literally write some of my favorite works of all time. I also like to read a lot of stuff from different countries. So I also really like the work of Inio Asano. I also like the works of Taiyo Matsumoto. He wrote stuff like Sunny. They also wrote Goodnight Poon Poon. Inio Asano also wrote Solanin, which is one of my favorite manga of all time. And also Manu Larsenet, who is a French cartoonist. He wrote Ordinary Victories, which is one of the best depictions of the human condition I have ever read in anything before in my life. And
that sounds awesome.
They're all massive influences on my own work, and they teach me a different way to, you know, express myself every time I read a new work from them.
Yeah, it's interesting because Clayton, it was the same thing. He has a lot of inspiration of like, I think he was saying like European comics and things like that. Like he looks at everything, is not just stuck in one genre. Like I think for comic book artists, it's the same thing. Like there was so much inspiration and influence drawn from manga. I mean, all the way back to Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld and those guys looking at Akira and getting inspired, and then looking at, I know Rob Liefeld's talked about like Appleseed and Berserk and like all the stuff he was looking at back in the day and drawing inspiration and taking ideas from. So it's cool that, you know, artists are doing that with art, and you guys are doing it with writing too.
Absolutely. Like Clayton is a student of the game, and he's a fantastic writer. He's sent me a lot of his scripts. I've read them, and I've just been always completely enamored with his style and the way that he's able to balance the artwork and the writing. And also he letters his own stuff too, which is also really good. So I look at his stuff and I'm like, man, like I want to get there. You know what I mean? Like,
well, look, since I can do this, breaking news. Whoa.
Breaking news.
What's this going to be? Clayton may or may not be writing something that I'm going to draw.
Really?
Yeah. We talked about it after the podcast and thought it would be fun. We may or may not be taking what I did in that 28 panels challenge and expanding upon it with Clayton's creativity. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, seeing what he comes up with.
Oh man, that's a powerhouse duo right there. I'm super stoked to see what you guys come up with. I wanted
to he just did that entry. Which publisher is it right now? They're doing
Mad Cave?
Say it again.
The Mad Cave Talent Search.
Yeah, Mad Cave.
I'm doing it too. We're both we're gonna send each other our scripts and like read them and like check them out. We're actually doing it on the same comic sanction.
Oh, cool.
By Ray Fox. So yeah, I'm excited to see. You know, I have to still like submit mine and edit it a little bit first. But I'm excited to see like the different directions that we've taken with the same comic, you know?
Yeah. He told me he was working hard on his Mad Cave entry for that contest, but that as soon as he was done with that, he's going to start chipping away at writing me a little short, maybe like, 4 to 6 page thing to draw. So I'm looking forward to that. Speaking of drawing, something that Clayton has written, did you see the Batman zine? Did you get your hands on that?
I do.
Brunson,
I have
Raymond
a copy
Brunson.
of it. I actually have a copy of it he sent to me, and I devoured it almost instantly.
It's back there on my spinner rack. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, there it is down there.
Yep, that's it.
Awesome stuff, right?
Loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, his take on Bane. I really liked his take on Bane. I will say, are you reading Absolute Batman at all?
I am not. I actually, it's something I want to like correct in my comics life, but I don't typically read Marvel DC stuff.
Okay.
I think the closest I've done, I was reading like the Ultimate line. I was reading like the Ultimate X-Men, some Ultimate Spider-Man stuff. And I want to start reading, although I don't know if it counts as like, it's kind of like older DC, but like Alan Moore Swamp Thing. I really want to read. I've heard like nothing but great things about that entire comic. I have a lot of reading to do, but
you got a lot. That's the nice part though, because you'll have no shortage of stuff to catch up on. But I would say put Absolute Batman up to the top of your list. What Scott Snyder's doing on there is crazy. Like the several people have commented on the most recent issue that it was one of the like best written comics they've read in like the last decade. Gosh. And it's delving into that version of Bane's kind of backstory in this most recent issue, and it is really, really well done.
Oh man, that doesn't surprise me that Scott Snyder is, because he is, along with him, like James Tynion the fourth and like they're like the comics people right now. They're the hottest things going on right now. It's like, I love, like, Something Is Killing the Children. I was so happy when I was at San Diego Comic-Con and I found out that they renewed it. They're like setting it up for at least 100 issues. And so I'm super happy. I think I heard also kind of like through the grapevine, I'm not sure if this is actually going to happen or not. I hope it does, but I don't know if it was Netflix or another streaming service, but they were set up to try and make a TV show of Something Is Killing the Children.
I feel like it was, I want to say it was Netflix that picked it up. I'm pretty sure I remember seeing that announced somewhere. And it's such a great concept.
Oh, I hope so.
Well, here's the thing. Do the fingers crossing thing, but then you got to do that for that they do it right.
Yes, that they have to bring in,
when things get adapted for television and for movies and things, especially seems like comic stuff with strong source material like that, like if they make too many changes, it can make or break it, right?
Yeah, like that reminds me of Paper Girls and how I think that only got like one season, right? One or two, which was devastating because I also I read the comics like Brian K. Vaughan, Saga. Who doesn't know this man, and so I'm just praying that it's able to get a very accurate sort of depiction that's very close to the comics. But I think it's going to be maybe a little difficult because that comic does some pretty gruesome gory stuff. So I'm like, I know how they're going to get away with some of the stuff that they do in that comic.
Look what they did with The Boys, though. They kind of made that even more gory than some of the stuff in the it made me cringe quite a few times, and I know some of the stuff that was in the comics. So if they do it right, like I find the problem is when they try to change things to make it for an audience that doesn't know about the source material, like they lean too far in that direction. That's kind of when I think they get off track. Like I understand maybe changing a few things to make it more understandable for the layman who isn't familiar with the story or the source material, but sometimes I feel like they push too far in the other direction, and that's kind of when they start losing me,
Yeah, it's appealing to like the least common denominator. But it's unfortunate that, sometimes a fact of that is that most people aren't going to be interested in, that specific idea or whatever that the comic source material is. I mean, sometimes even the writers themselves don't really care too much for the source material. I mean, look at like what happened to The Witcher. Really, really unfortunate, they were openly, I think, like mocking, Henry Cavill and everything that was happening. And it was really, really sad to see as a writer, like it pained me.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. One person who I think has done it right when it comes to making changes for things when they're adapted is what Robert Kirkman did with Invincible. Like
Absolutely.
they've stayed true to the comics while still, changing quite a few things around and changing the timeline a little bit and everything. And now, from what I understand, with the upcoming season, they're actually going to use it as a platform to do one of the stories that he had intended to do in the comic that he never got to. So I think that's really cool as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's gonna be sick.
Yeah. So there's are you all caught up?
I haven't seen too much of Invincible, just I think like the first season and like, half of the second one, but it's on my list. There's so many things.
Basically the way that the most recent season ends sets up this storyline that he's going to tell in the next season. And apparently it was something he meant to do in the run on the comics and he just never got around to it. So it's going to be cool to see it adapted and, get to see what he had in his brain. And then I'm going to be sitting there just imagining how Ryan Ottley would have drawn it, because I'm a huge Ryan Ottley fan, so be like, oh man, how would Ryan have portrayed this compared to what they can do, with the limitations of animation. They can do some cool stuff, but to me, it just is not the same.
It won't hit the same. It's not, it's a different medium, you could definitely bring him in, and see what you could do, but there are so many hands involved, I think, when it comes to animation in general. And, it might get kind of, that magic that he has might get kind of lost in a lot of it.
Now, speaking of artists, as a writer working with artists, how have you found that collaborative process to be? Like, I asked the last writer I had on here, I had a gentleman named Adam Beechin on here. He's written for every like animated property you can think of, like Teen Titans, the Batman, Transformers, Robots in Disguise, Ben 10, Johnny Test. Like, this guy has done everything. Andy writes for comics. And I asked him, I said, when working with an artist, have there been moments where what you had in your head and you wrote down on the page, the artist portrayed it in a manner with which you did not picture it portrayed, but it like blew you away, like they did it better? And then on the opposite side of the coin, did they ever not capture the way you had intended it to be? And he's like, yeah, more the latter than the former. But he's like, there's been moments where what he had visualized, the artist just took it and did something he couldn't even have imagined with it.
There are a lot of instances. I tend to lean more on the side of being loose with my descriptions and how I let the artist interpret it. The last thing I want to do is make the artist feel like they're chained, their hand is chained to the desk and they have to draw exactly what I want, exactly the way that I want them to do it. Right. And so there have been a handful of times, just like a small handful where I've kind of imagined it a specific way and it didn't come out, that way, unfortunately. But, that's nothing that can't be corrected by just like talking and collaborating. That's part of the process of comics, is the collaboration between writer and artist. But I find myself more than happy to let loose on the reins and let the artists interpret it how they do, because more often than not, because comics artists are in a league of their own when it comes to storytelling. And that's one thing that I always try to look for when I'm working with a different, comics artist, is how good are they at storytelling? They can be one of the most phenomenal illustrators of all time, but if they don't know how to do sequential art and, take the reader, on a journey from point A to point B, then it gets, that message can get kind of lost but it's very specific instances in which I feel like I need to, unless I have a very particular panel in mind, that's probably like the only time where I'll be like, okay, like over the shoulder or like wide shot, or, you know, I'll start using the kind of like camera terminology.
Yeah.
But I am always fascinated by the work that an artist will give me when I send over a script and I get the first kind of, you know, thumbnails back and I can see the vision coming to life. I absolutely love working with artists, and that's my favorite part of comics. That's why I love comics so much, is just seeing the collaboration happen and
oh yeah
the stuff that they can come up with that I never even thought of, you know.
Yeah, it's so amazing. Like when you work with a good artist, they're gonna come up with stuff that you couldn't even imagine, right?
Yeah.
In regard to your writing process in your scripts, are you doing more what would be referred to as the Marvel method, or are you, because you said you kind of work loose, are you giving the artist a general outline of what you want to see in the page and kind of letting them run with it, or are you doing a more like a full script where you're literally putting in dialogue, you know, panel 1, here's what happens, here's what the characters are saying, panel 2, panel 3, that type of thing? How do you prefer to work?
I personally prefer to do full script. I think the way that I would feel most comfortable actually doing Marvel method would be if I've been working with this artist for like a long time and they
That's
just
what I was gonna say.
instinctively
Yeah.
know like the kinds of stuff I write, and I would also in turn know the kinds of stuff that they draw. So it also goes both ways, I think,
Yeah.
when
Playing to
it
each
comes to
other's
that.
strengths, right?
Exactly. Like whenever I work with a new artist, I always like to ask them this question, which Brian Michael Bendis kind of has taught me in his book Words for Pictures, which is a
Which
mind
is over
blowing.
my shoulder on the shelf over there.
Yeah, it is one of my favorite craft books of all time when it comes to comics. And he always says, what do you like to draw? What kind of stuff do you like to draw? What are you into illustrating right now? You know, because when the artist has fun with what they're drawing and they're liking what they're drawing, it's going to come out just that much stronger.
Yeah.
And I like playing to those strengths, and like I have no problem coming up with a story or, you know, characters or anything that kind of pertains to that, because when it comes to writing, it's just about finding the heart of the story, finding the underlying theme, and then I can build around that. And
Yeah.
there will always be something meaningful that I will try and find, but I do like to do full script.
Okay.
But I'm on the looser side of that, of like I will let the artist know firsthand, especially if it's a newer artist, like these are just, you know, this is what I like envision happening on the page, but you are more than free to interpret it however you do, because I am interested in the way that you see the story as well.
Now, in regard to writing and scripts and all these things we're talking about, I feel now is the time we have to talk about the infamous
True.
comic titled Bird Turd.
Here's
Tell
the
me all
topic.
about it. Show it for the viewers. Let
Here
me
we
give you
go.
here. I got to give you the full
Yeah,
stage here so everybody can see. Hold it
here we
up
go.
there.
So this
Oh
is
yeah.
Bird Turd. It's a bit ridiculous of an idea, as I will explain right now, but the premise essentially is this guy named Franklin Pine. He has the power to talk to birds, but there's a
Okay.
catch. The catch is that he actually has to eat bird poop in order to activate
Oh
his
my
powers.
god.
And so, and the thing
So
is, it
this
doesn't
is
even
like
like.
a twist on Chew almost.
It's a little, yeah. I was slightly inspired by Chew.
Yeah.
It started off funny enough as a sort of spoof of Spider-Man, because he's also in New York City.
Yeah.
You know, he ends up going to Schmo's Pizza instead of Joe's Pizza. You know, in Spider-Man 2, Tobey Maguire, favorite comic book movie of all
Yes.
time. But he, you know, and he's kind of living his days, you know, ordinarily, nothing really happening, believing that nothing will really change. But it isn't until he runs into a very annoying woodpecker on his day off, and he actually strikes a deal with the woodpecker and says, "Hey, like, you know, I need you to get out of here, right? Because it's my day off and you're bugging the
Yeah.
shit out of me. It's like, I'll get you a pizza from Schmo's, but you need to like leave after that." But through that process of like the first two issues, he actually becomes the target of a New York pigeon gang. So as you know, as you can imagine, you know, birds can also be a little bit ridiculous, and they have
Yes.
their own society and jobs. They own their own problems, stuff that they're going through. So the initial idea behind Bird Turd was, sort of, because I dropped out of college when I was like 19. I only went back when I was about 23.
Okay.
And it was in those years where I kind of felt like I had fallen to a kind of a dark place mentally, and I didn't really know what I was doing, where I was going, and I felt like I was kind of behind in life. And when I decided to go back to school, everyone else was graduating with their bachelors, and I would just kind of compare myself a lot. And so, and I kind of felt like I feel like everything I'm going through just is just shit. It just sucks. But eventually, what I kind of came to discover about Bird Turd was taking all that crap that you've gone through in life and learning to grow from it. And so that's the idea behind Bird Turd is Franklin really has to step up to the next stage of his life. And he's been kind of very unhappy in the way that he's been going about his life. He doesn't believe he's really worth anything. He's down in the dumps as well. And this book is really for anyone who just feels behind and feels like it's too late for them to accomplish their dreams and aspirations, and just reminding them that it's never too late.
That's an awesome concept, man. That is so uniquely, I mean, I feel like comics is one of the places that stuff like this can be done too, especially like indie type of books and things. Like pitching Bird Turd to Marvel or DC
would never fly.
Maybe Image, if Image thought it was a good enough idea, you never know. There's been some pretty crazy stuff in there too, but that is such a unique idea, and it sounds like it has a positive message behind it too, given what you were kind of going through and how you were feeling at the time. When you said that about comparing yourself, it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes. It's comparison is the thief of joy.
Absolutely. I think of that all the time, but it's very rare that I actually heed it. Because it's so easy, I think, especially in this day and age, and social media you see all the time, especially as you can imagine, the content creator, you have to post all the time. Oh, I'm not doing enough. It's always, it's always on your time. Like there's never a break as a content creator. And that's probably the toughest part, is it's a full-time job 24/7.
For sure. Yeah, I have to remind my jiu-jitsu students about that adage, because when it comes to progressing in jiu-jitsu, they always want to compare themselves to that person that started around the same time that they did. And they'll go, oh, coach, so-and-so started when I did, and they're so much further ahead of me, like they're learning quicker and everything. And I'm like, well, you come in 2 days a week and they are here 6 days a week. So that is a false metric to be comparing yourself to. But as far as the person's concerned, that person's only there when they see them when they're there. They don't see the other times. So in their mind, it's the whole perception is reality thing. It's like, oh, well, he's only here when I'm here, the 2 classes a week. No, he's at those 2 classes and 4 or 5 other classes.
Yeah.
Sometimes 2 classes in the same day. So it's a very, very hard thing, because we don't see, what everybody else is going through and the work they're putting in to end up appearing the way that they do, right? It's kind of the iceberg meme.
Yeah, there's just like 90%.
Below, and then that little point that's sticking out. Yeah.
It's something that's been kind of a boon for a lot of writers, especially, kind of relating to that concept of putting in the work but not having a lot of people see it, is that I think kind of before the spearheading of social media and the way that everything's kind of popped off recently, unless you were within writing spaces, you wouldn't know what writing looks like typically to the average person. And so it can look like a lot of pacing back and forth in your room. It can look like you're just stressed, or you're talking to yourself, or you're just kind of trying to work things out. And writing is one of those things where I think it can get kind of sometimes conflated with literacy. I think this is especially true of I feel like a lot of new writers, and this is where like writer's block kind of comes from, is that we have all these grand ideas in our heads, and we imagine, the perfect trilogy, the character does this, and the climax is amazing, and all these characters come together. But the moment you start writing it, of course it's not going to come out perfectly. And so we instinctually kind of like stop ourselves and kind of in some instances sabotage ourselves in our work because we're like, it's not coming out the way I'm imagining it. But that's what writer's block is. It's just self-judgment. It's being like, oh, my skill level, like your taste, what got you into writing is high, it's up there, you know, but your skill level when you're first starting out naturally won't be. And so kind of the process of fending off writer's block is reminding yourself that with, you know, hard work and showing up every day at the computer, whether you want to or not, and typing, you're going to be able to bridge that gap between your skill and your taste.
That's great advice. I always like to ask writers when I have them on what your routine is daily in regard to maintaining your skill set for writing, because like anything, like art, any type of art form, it's a degrading skill set, right? Like it's the old, if you don't use it, you lose it type of thing. Or it's not even that you lose it, but you could get rusty. In jiu-jitsu, when people don't train for a period of time and they come back, it's not that they forgot all the moves or all the technique that they knew, it's the timing is off, right? So I assume I always compare things because there's so many parallels between jiu-jitsu and life. It has to be the same with writing, to where if you're not regularly sitting down at the computer and doing it, that skill set can de-evolve into something that you aren't wanting it to be. So what's your routine for trying to maintain and improve that skill set?
My particular routine, I tend to write. I mean, no two writers will be the same. I think writing is one of those, or like pretty much like any creative field, it's one of those sort of professions where, you know, each writer will have a very unique and particular routine. Some writers will write strict time from like, you know, 6 a.m. to like 9 a.m. because they find that they're most creative then. Some writers like me only typically write at nights. I also, you know, to get into the mood to like write, I kind of Pavlov myself. I have a lot of like lights that like I like to turn on, and then like when I see those lights, my brain kind of recognizes that as a pattern. It's like, oh, okay, we're sitting down to like write. And so whether I want to or not, it's tough. It's as you know, like it's tough some days where you just feel like you don't have the energy to write or to draw, and life's kind of like just like beating you up and taking all your spoons for the day. But I find that even getting just like one panel down will help me to remain consistent, because writing is a muscle just like anything else. When you're first, and this is what I try to tell newer writers when they're learning how to write, is give yourself like the smallest possible goal for the day. You know, tell yourself, oh, I only want to write like one panel. Or, you know, if you're happen to be like a prose writer, I only want to write like one sentence. More often than not, you're going to want to actually write more once you make it past that. And so starting small and being able to build yourself up, you'll notice that your writing chops actually get stronger and you're able to write more consistently. You'll be able to write a lot more and actually in shorter amount of time as you progress. And so that's sort of like my advice for new writers and how I like to go about whenever my writing strength wanes, you know, and it's been a long like couple weeks, and you know, I've just had a particularly rough time, you know, in real life, and I come back to my scripts and I'm like, man, like what's happening? Like I can't like write as much as I want to, you know, but like and I think most of all, being kind to yourself. So the routine I would say is just like finding a method or finding something that works for you and showing up whenever you can, because more often than not, when you do show up, even though you might think to yourself, oh, I don't have any ideas, that's when the muse recognizes that you're showing up, and then they come to help out. And the ideas will come. You just have to show up.
Yeah, definitely have to show up and put in the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about the artist on Bird Turd. How did you become connected with them?
So Chandler, I actually became connected through a writing class that we took at a community college together. So back when I was reapplying back to college when I was 23, I met him and I noticed that like he had an art page on Instagram, and I loved his style. He first started off actually drawing like his own versions of the Avengers. So I have a little like Thor sticker on my laptop that he drew,
awesome.
that I love, and I bought it for $5. I was like, I believe artists should be paid for their work always. Like, and he was willing to give it to me for free, but I was like, like, I think it's important. That's a standard that I will always uphold.
Yeah.
Is that creatives deserve to be paid no matter what, whether it's like web design, whether it's graphic design, whether it's like logos or art lettering, anything like that. But I found him through that class, and actually, funny enough, we talked a little bit. I knew he was a great artist, but we never like hung out outside of class. And so when my teacher for my undergrad said, "Hey, find a storyboard artist," I went, "I know just the guy." And so I messaged him, and he said, "Yeah, I'd be so down." And so I paid him for that as well, and he did the storyboard artist, or he did the storyboard. And then a couple of years later, he messages me out of the blue and says, "I really think this has some legs. Like, I think this should be a comic." And so eventually, I couldn't envision this style, this story in any other style. He perfectly captures the really poignant moments of Bird Turd, the very cartoony style, very like Phineas and Ferb-esque kind of style. I really, really love everything about his work and what he's able to portray in it. So that's kind of like how we met, and we've been at it ever since.
That's awesome. Would you put him in that category of somebody who gets your writing and you get his strengths as an artist?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, having seen a lot of his stuff, but beforehand, like as well, when I was thinking about like Bird Turd and like who would do the art, I was just like, it's just Chandler. Like, it just has to be Chandler. But he routinely makes my pages better, to a point where I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Like, like that's such a genius idea. Like, there's one on page 3 of Bird Turd. The woodpecker is like really annoying Frank, our main character, and he ends up it was his idea to have the woodpecker actually peck into the panel that Frank is in, and it starts to break.
That's awesome.
So, and I'm just like, I didn't write that in. Like, I didn't think of it. And that's the artist brain at work,
For sure.
And it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Now, I believe I saw on your Instagram that you got to go to San Diego Comic-Con this year.
Mm-hmm. First time.
I've been once. Yeah, way back in, I want to say 2016, I believe, was when I got to go. Yeah, so but it's one of those experiences that you never forget. So this was your first time going.
Mm-hmm.
What was your takeaway? What inspired you? Did you get to interact with some of the creators? I mean, it's kind of a spectacle, so it's kind of hard to take everything in, and I'm sure it's even more so nowadays. So what was your experience at Comic-Con like?
My experience was incredible. I didn't realize how big San Diego Comic-Con was. It was like 55 rows, and I was like, this is insane. Literally like an entire day to just like not even peruse the particular vendors that I wanted to see, to just see what was there. Like, it was going to take forever. And so, but I mean, I was like a kid in the biggest candy store on earth. I loved seeing all the big publishers show up. I loved going to like the Marvel, DC, Image Comics booths. Fantagraphics was also there, which was really cool because I read a lot of their stuff and liked their stuff. I don't know if First Second was there, but I also liked reading a lot of their stuff, like Tilly Walden. I loved On a Sunbeam so much. It was one of like the first comics I've ever read when I was introduced to it in my comics class that I actually took before I decided I wanted to be a comics reader. But it was so big, so enormous, and it felt so heartwarming and comfortable being in a place where I'm like, okay, this feels, especially having, been like in the comic scene a little bit longer now and having read a lot more, being able to like pinpoint certain comics that I've read and creators and references, and getting to like actually just see them face to face was so insane to me. Like, I was breathing the same air as these people, and that I gushed about constantly to like my sister and my friends and everyone, that won't shut up about online. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like that's Matt Kent right there. Oh my God. Also seeing like con exclusive stuff. It was, I think, very validating in reminding me that this is where I belong. Yeah,
it's hard now, all these years later. I've always wanted to go back, and I want to take my wife because she's never been. And one day it'll happen, but it's hard seeing all the con exclusive stuff because I'm such a geek for all the art, and I paid a premium to get a copy off of eBay of the Skinbreaker preview from Kirkman and David Finch. I got a double signed, so it's signed by Kirkman and Finch, and I say I paid too much, but to me it's worth it. So
absolutely worth it. Yeah.
But I'm seeing all this stuff that you can only get if you're there in person. Well, that's not true. You can also spend way too much on eBay to get it as well.
You can also get absolutely scalped like crazy, but like, hey, you still get it. You know what I mean? Like I'd say like, it's never too much money for those kinds of things. And what you like, and you can like, if you invest, especially, I mean, all my comics are like, you can't see them, but like they're on the sides of my house, my room, stuff like that. I got, I like an issue 0 variant of Something's Killing the Children.
Nice.
I was like, I have to get this right now, literally.
Yep.
And I know people are probably like tripling the price online somewhere for it.
Oh, easily.
But it's totally worth it. I recommend. I was sad because I only got 1 day. I think 1 day is not long enough at all, especially for San Diego
not at all.
You need at least like 2 days. I would say
at least.
I didn't go to any panels. I didn't have time because I was just going through Artist Alley and all the different booths. It's literally an entire like 4 or 5 day like event. You need to go.
Safe to say that you'll be trying to go back in the future?
Undoubtedly. Like without a doubt, I will do everything in my power to make sure I can go again.
It was crazy. I've told this story on the podcast before, but how I ended up going was like completely on a whim. I was down in Orange County training with my jiu-jitsu instructor, and I didn't even realize that Comic-Con was that week. And so I'm like, well, you can't get badges that the week of. So I'm like, crap. So just on a whim, I went on. I'm sponsored by one of the bigger jiu-jitsu uniform companies. So there's a forum with a ton of people on there. And I went on and I just like, hey, I know it's a long shot, but does anybody know anybody that could get me into Comic-Con? I didn't realize it was going on. I really want to go. And somebody messaged me and had the hookup and sent me a secret link that only employees get of the convention center. And I was able to go and purchase a badge, and
the
rest is history.
Ride or die. That is a homie through thick and thin.
It was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. So I ended up making it happen, drove, from Orange County to San Diego, and was able to make it. I think I only did 1 day as well. And like you said, it's just, you need 2 or 3 at least, especially now, because I know it's just every year it gets bigger and bigger. Yeah, like it was, I think they fill out like super, super quickly. And also I was lucky enough to get a Saturday slot. Like I wasn't even going on one of the less populated days. But I mean, when I was there, there were a lot of times it was just like shoulder to shoulder. Yeah. And it would take like, I think to get from like one side of the exhibition hall to the other, it would take like 15 minutes of just walking straight, because you're trying to like kind of get through people, and maybe you see a lot of cool stuff, or Galactus shows up and everyone's like, that was amazing. I kept seeing that. Literally like so tall. He was massive, but it's what an experience. I highly recommend that every single comics, if you're into comics at all, like, or just want to check it out, like if you're a geek, you deserve to go to San Diego Comic-Con, Definitely. Well, as we come to the end of the podcast here, I wanted to give you an opportunity to let everybody know what they should be on the lookout for from you that you're able to speak about, because a lot of times when I have creators on here, they have things that they don't want to, let the cat out of the bag quite yet. But what do you have in the works that you're willing to talk about that you want everybody to be on the lookout for? Well, I got into an anthology, a horror anthology, like a couple months ago. So it's an anthology called Horror Not Hate. And the proceeds for the anthology, it's created by J.M. Brandt. The proceeds are going to be going to a lot of, different foundations, AAPI, LGBTQIA plus community, a lot of underrepresented communities, because we're trying to, in these kind of dismal times in the United States, trying to
shine a light on the creativity and the wonders of, people of color and, different individuals that are just really need, representation. And so that's going to be coming out hopefully in the next couple months. I'm not sure, actually I have to message GM about that, but be on the lookout for that. I have a story called Hypoxia that I wrote in there, a horror story. So I'm super excited to share that, as well as issue 2 of Bird Turd should be coming up pretty soon in the next couple months. I have to talk with Chandler about, how thumbs are going, but
awesome.
that's coming out pretty well. The script's already been kind of edited. So I have a handful of little things kind of coming out I'm super excited about. And also very much in the beginning stages of me outlining a crime noir that I'll be writing in the one shot. So I like to expand my writing genres a bit too. I don't like to just write, comedies and coming of age stories. I also like to write, noirs. I have ideas for romances, fantasies, horrors, you name it, but be on the lookout for those. I'll be posting about them hopefully in the coming weeks with some artwork. But yeah, that's what I got slated.
Got quite a bit of stuff coming up.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I put your website here at the bottom. Everybody can go there, I'm sure, to keep track of upcoming things. And you probably have all your social links and everything on there. But I'm going to make sure to include those in the video description as well. But everybody, if you're watching the video version, you can see his website is rickyinwriting.com. So you can go there to check him out, keep track of everything that's going on. You can probably purchase Bird Turd on there, I would guess.
I honestly am at the point where I'll just send it to people because I want people to read it, and check it out.
There you go.
I got a whole stack, let me know, DM me, and we can set it up. I'll send it to you a PO box or something.
Definitely. That's really cool, man. I'm gonna have to hit you up and have you send me a copy.
I would love to. Absolutely. And I'll sign this one for you right here.
Oh, please do. Yeah, the one that was on the podcast.
Yeah, on the very podcast.
Very cool, man. Well, listen, hang out with me for a moment. I'm going to throw your Instagram handle up here as well. And everybody, his Instagram is at @RickyInWriting. So make sure you go follow him over on Instagram. I'll include any other pertinent links in the video description as well as the podcast description. Man, it's just been a pleasure having you on here today. I really enjoyed it. I want to have you back on after that anthology comes out and anything else that's in the works that you want to come on and talk about. I would love to have you back on in the future, man.
Of course. Thank you so much, James, for having me. It's been such a pleasure, on this podcast. And I love talking about comics. I literally won't shut up about it. It's one of my favorite things in the world. I think we should get more comic creators out there, and I
agree.
I'd love to just, try and help out other comic creators that are trying to get into it, mainly comic writers. Because when I was starting, I was like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So that's my ultimate goal, is to eventually teach comics writing and to help, a lot of new and up and coming comic writers get into the business.
That would be awesome, man. Yeah, there needs to be more of that for sure. And showing people that it is a viable pursuit, to get into. So definitely keep doing what you're doing and inspiring others. Hang out with me here for a moment while I hit the outro and talk to everybody. Everybody, it has been a pleasure to have Mr. Ricardo on today. Make sure you go follow him, go to his website, give him all the support in the world. If you are listening or watching, you already found the podcast. I'd encourage you to like and subscribe, give a rating, hopefully 5 stars if you're enjoying it. And in the meantime, everybody, keep it nerdy.